Thank you. All right, well, welcome everybody. This is our first weekly InstructLab CLI community meeting. This was previously an internal meeting, but we're now opening it up kind of post-summit to the community so we can start getting more feedback and, open things up and be a bit more transparent about, what's going on the CLI side of things. This is a relatively new meeting, so we have not a ton of attendees today, but we're working on getting this into our collaboration document and our community repository. I've just pinned the meeting link to the front end channel in our Slack. So if you're ever needing to find it, it can be there. It will be at this time every week moving forward. And yeah, I think we'll keep working on stuff like that and socializing this in a similar way that we've done with the sort of general community meeting that is on Tuesdays at the same time. But this one will be specific to the InstructLab CLI, which many of you are familiar with. Some of you may have played with the demo at Summit. So just a few things on the agenda today. We're going to go over just some release stuff to begin with. So we released 0.15.0 on Tuesday. You can see the change log in the link there and the meeting agenda. And if you want to access the meeting agenda, you can get that in the chat. It's also in the information at the bottom right of your Google Meet. If you click on that, it's Notes Weekly InstructLab CLI Meeting. This was sort of our post-summit release. It included a lot of stuff, enhancements beyond sort of what people were using at Summit, which was our 14.1 release. And this is now our latest stable release. In the short term, we are planning on doing a 15.1. There was a CVE that was raised this week that we want to address and get done and move our stable tag to that. So Ali is actually on the call, and he is a PR open for that. I actually neglected to. Oh, go ahead, Ollie.
I just want to make a quick update on that. The package doesn't seem to break iLab itself. We just had to bump the version of Llama CPP Python. It's just that one of our functional tests is not passing anymore, and I'm looking into that. I've dug into Llama CPP Python quite a bit and realized that it's just setting a minimum for the max context window. So I'm trying to reconcile how that test might look in the future, but I'll post an update to Slack. It's something I'm actively working on today. And
appreciate you picking that up. A couple other things that will be going into the C stream. You can actually see that here. If you're unfamiliar kind of with our process on how we do releases, Ollie has actually written a great document in our InstructLab docs here called Release Strategy. So if you're curious about how we generally do releasing, definitely encourage people to take a look at that. But in terms of our 15.1 release, there's a few other things in addition to the CVE fix that we're planning on getting in here. We look at the diff here. We can see there's some linting fixes that Ollie took care of as well as some fixes for our PyPy publishing. So we saw a successful test with this. So we're hoping actually when we draft the 15.1 release, it will actually get that publishing to PyPy. So you'll be able to just pip install InstructLab. You want to install directly from GitHub anymore. So we'll be communicating that release when it goes out. I think at this point, we're just waiting for this last PR from Ollie. But once that's done, we'll backport that, draft the new release, and the stable tag will move to 15.1. And that's going to be our new stable release. Were there any questions?
Nathan, just can you hear me this time?
Yeah, you sound much better. Yes.
Okay. Just to add on to that is that'll be the first package up in PyPy.
Yes,
even though it's 15.1, and as you mentioned, going forward, you'll be able to just install directly from PyPy. So I think that's a big thing we've been looking to do, but it's just been on our backlog as we went along. So
yeah, and there's probably going to be some documentation updates we're going to want to make with that. A lot of the documentation is like sort of pip installing, via Git. So we're going to update that to just do direct pip installs. I'm not sure if there's a way with pip. I'm sure there is to install by tag. So like 15.1 will be the first one that you can get via PyPy. But I believe there's probably going to be a mechanism so that for future releases, it'll always obviously point to the latest. But if people want to install older versions, those older versions will remain on GitHub. You can actually go back as far as I think like 0.1 on GitHub now, although there's not much reason to do that at this point. Any other questions or comments about the 0.15 release before we start talking about 0.16? Cool. All right. So next major release we have planned is 0.16. The roadmap is here. We use milestones to sort of determine content for CLI releases. So this one we have scheduled for the 30th. I'm not sure if we want to change this to June 1st, given some of the internal stuff we have going on with that, or if we want to leave it at the 30th. I think the 30th is a Thursday, 31st is a Friday, so I'm not sure if that makes a difference. Go ahead, Charlie.
I think we have some other stuff that we're also aligning with the 30th, so I think keeping it as the 30th makes sense, if that's okay.
Okay, cool. Absolutely. So right now it looks like we have actually quite a few things in here. I don't know if we want to just go through these quickly, or how folks feel about that. That's a good use of time. Probably worth just doing a quick look over if there's no objections to that. All right. So one thing we have here is the name change for the ILAB command. I'm not sure. This one has been open for a while. Looks like it hasn't really been touched in a couple of weeks. Does anyone have anything about this?
Yeah, this one never really went anywhere. We were debating because a lot of us had some feelings about iLab, about LMDK, and all of that fun stuff. No one could ever think of a better name than iLab, really. So I think we're keeping it as iLab. So this might just end up getting closed unless someone comes in with some really creative suggestions. The only other thing that I know that we were kicking around internally was something called like Lemmy, like LEMME, which is kind of a play on LLM. Kind of sounds like LLM, and you could do things like Lemmy train and stuff like that. So it's kind of a play on words, and it sounds kind of nice. That's the only thing. Other than that, I think this might just be closed if no one else has any suggestions.
Martin, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, it's one of those funny things, where, at the time we were all meant to change the name, but I think it's the side effect to this is the strange one, because, even one of the names there, when I did a quick search online, I think it was one of the Kardashians, I don't know, medicine, one of, a multivitamin product or something they had. So the problem is with changing it is, what do we touch? And maybe we have to be very careful, I'd say, with the name, that we don't end up with a name that suddenly we find out down the road, has a bad connotation or is associated with a bad connotation. So I think if we are making a decision, it needs to be more than a fun kind of name, and more a kind of we need to think about it in a very adult way, because the name could have a bad effect, and then it could screw up a lot of things. So I think that'd be the only point I'd have on that.
Yeah, I think what I'm going to propose is that we keep the issue open, but we remove it from this 5:30 milestone, since this doesn't seem like a need to have by 5:30. If folks are amenable to that, any objections? All right, I'm going to go ahead and do that. With that, we're already getting closer and closer. Well, let's see, we'll remove that. I think that should. Did I not do that correctly? Like, clear this milestone doesn't feel like the right thing to do. Now, has anybody done? I want to make sure I don't clear the entire milestone here. I guess I can just remove this one, or maybe edit milestone. That's not it. I don't think I've removed something without closing it before. Anybody know off the top of their head want to chime in?
No, I mean that button is probably the only thing you can do, but I also am kind of hesitant to click that because it kind of sounds like you're going to clear the entire milestone. We can just do this after the call.
Yeah,
maybe just like take note of which ones you want to remove.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Good idea, Charlie. I will throw that on here. I'll make that an action item for myself, actually. Say, shoot, in case we have any others. We put them. All right. So, Charlie, I believe this is your proposal that you have. This is making more mileage. Do you want to just talk about this briefly?
Yep. I actually have a PR. It's not linked, but this has been kind of, it's existed for a while. So I've had a couple iterations, but the gist of it is iLab currently has a structure that is, I don't know, about 10, 12 commands, I think, under a main group that's just iLab. And to me, when I first saw that structure, I kind of thought it's not very expandable. Like if we add 20 more commands, it all can be under the iLab group. And it also isn't very indicative of, what the commands are actually doing. So something like iLab generate, what are you generating? Right. So my idea was kind of add things like iLab data generate and add sub commands, which have commands under them, sort of like grouping as you would see in other command line interfaces. So we're hoping to have this one in by the 5:30 milestone, because we don't want to introduce super major CLI redesigns too far down the line in iLab, just because we want stability. So I'm actively working on this one of PR. I think that's what you're doing, is where you're linking the PR. Thanks, Nathan.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to want me to let me do it. So
yeah, I'll go back and fix it later. I realized that earlier.
no worries.
But yeah, so questions or concerns on this one are welcome, because I know it's kind of a huge change. I also have an enhancement open in dev docs for users to look at. Yeah, JD.
Yeah, I just got to drop quickly. Sorry, I'll just get it. Sorry, Jadip, I'll just quickly come in. Charlie, I've reviewed your enhancement today. I think the enhancement should come before chicken and egg here. The enhancement should be reviewed and merged before we merge any code. I like the look and feel of it overall. I have a few nits and one or two little things maybe to think about, but I think the direction you're going on is really, really good. And thanks for all the hard work and persevering with this, because I know you're at this for a while. Sorry, got to drop. And yeah, let's try and get people through the enhancement. I think is the big thing first. Okay. So well done, Charlie.
Yeah.
See you later,
Thanks,
folks.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, JD.
Go ahead, JD.
Yeah. Now, the only thing I was going to ask is if we should have multiple issues for this, or if you're planning to handle the whole thing, or if you can handle the whole thing in one.
We can kind of cross that bridge as we start getting reviews. I already had, I know we've discussed this in the last couple of days, like splitting up the work. But I already have a branch that I've been working on for like a month that has like most of the commands in it, and we can look at it and see if people have other opinions, and I can split it out based off of that. Or maybe something we could do is I could enable some collaborators on my fork, and people could push to the singular PR, because I feel like I usually agree that going for the smaller PRs is the approach, but I think arbitrarily splitting it up if I already have a branch doesn't make much sense. But we can. I'm open to anything if people want to take a stab at this as well.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. If anything, I would only suggest that we break it up by group. Like I guess we have model as a group, data as a group, taxonomy as a group. If there's anything that we would want to split, I guess I would suggest that that's the only thing we could possibly think about. Just have one PR for all the model commands and another one for data or something.
Yeah, the initial PR is the enhancement talks about new commands that I'm going to add as well. I think I might have included one or two of those in the PR, like model list, for example. I think is a very generic one that we should have in this initial go. But there's other ones like model top, which is more like, memory usage and GPU usage and stuff like that I want to include. That I think that will be a follow-up definitely to the entire thing. So that's a split that I'm already making. But if we want to split it down by group, if we look at the PR and it's massive, that's fine. I can work on hashing that out, but maybe just like an initial review of the draft PR to see what I'm working with first would be appreciated as well. But I agree with Martin, the enhancement should come before merging anything, of course. But I was talking to Russell, and just having something existing for this before the enhancement merges makes sense, because we are kind of a tight timeline here with getting this merged, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Colin, did you want to add to that? I think you're on mute, Colin.
You might be hardware muted. Yeah, now I think we can hear you now.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I also think I don't think we really need to split it up by group or anything, because I think, like as Charlie was saying, like adding new commands, that's a different story, and that makes sense. But like, if we're fundamentally changing kind of the hierarchy of the subcommands and everything, it's just like you want to have all of that in at the same time. You don't want to like have like iLab model train, but then still have like iLab generate. You know, like you kind of have everything to change at the same time, since it's like people are just gonna have to look at like how the new CLI works, you know, all at once anyway. So that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, that's a good
Bake
point.
in backward compatibility for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna alias them, I think. Like I think I'm gonna make iLab model train also work if you just run iLab train. That's the one thing that I haven't figured out how to do yet with Click. I'm sure it's pretty easy. But that is something that I need to do because we don't technically need to, because I think we're kind of under the assumption that we're still below 1.0, so we're not promising super stability. So that would be almost like a nice to have, and I might follow up with it. But
Yeah, I'd agree with that sentiment.
Well,
Awesome.
I mean, that would mean you have to go through and change all the tests too. As
Yeah.
part of the PR. It'd be nice if you could keep the old commands just so that we see the tests running, and that would at least
do
guarantee the
follow-ups.
backward compatibility.
Yeah, we should have some follow-up issues, I think, for moving the tests, and then eventually in a future release we can remove the backwards compatibility. All right. Any other comments on this before we move on?
Just basically, probably the aliasing has to happen in the same PR. Is that the conclusion we're coming to? So that's
Yeah. So I haven't run the test yet, but Ollie's right, they will all fail. So what I'll have to do is I will have to do the alias, which is the easiest solution, and the test should all work. It'll actually be a good smoke test. If I alias everything and the test fail, that means I broke something functionally. So I think it actually does make sense to do all that, which will be much easier for me.
Awesome. Thank you for your work on this, Charles. We appreciate it. All right. Let's go ahead and move on here. That was sort of a larger topic, so hopefully some of these will be a bit shorter. Lab test implemented for Linux. Ollie, you're assigned to this one. Anything of note we should be saying here? Is this still on track for 5:30 milestone?
Yeah, you can leave it on.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say leave it.
We can always move it later.
We were going to give to Mark.
Mm-hmm. Mark, which Mark?
The Stavros, but we couldn't.
Yes.
We couldn't assign him the issue for some reason.
He should be able to be assigned now. I added him to the organization. Should I switch the assignment to him?
Let's talk to him later, but I mean that'll be preferred.
Okay, Charlie.
A lot of stuff like this is going to be messed up by my PR as well. As something that I just want to throw in there. So like new commands, like this is technically a new command, even though it's just uncovering the test command for Linux. We need to be careful of if we also want to get the rework in. Just because like I don't want to implement a new feature, break someone's PR, and then have them do all that work for no reason. So that might be a conversation we want to have about stuff like this.
Okay, I'm just going to tag Mark in this for the discussion.
I suggest while we're at this, can we rename this to lab inference or something? Because I think lab test by itself is pretty non-explanatory about.
That's part of my enhancement is to rename it inference rather than test.
Okay, cool.
JD, can you comment that on the issue just so that we have that there? I can drop the link here in the chat. Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, I just want to say I do think Charlie's redesign should come in before. Like it shouldn't be blocked by a lot of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much it. In terms of progress for this PR, I'm not quite sure. I haven't synced with Mark about this in a bit, so but I'm not under the impression that this would like undo a lot of what he's done. So
okay. Cool. Sounds good. I think that's probably, I think a lot of things are going to be ended up getting changed because of Charlie's redesign. So, we can cross that bridge when we get there. I don't think we need to sort of deal with that today. This one I believe is actually kind of related. I saw this mentioned in the other one. This is making the back end of lab train consistent. Go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, I didn't realize this this existed. I think I have like a duplicate issue that's the same exact thing, because I have a PR open that is gonna merge soon that that has the whole PyTorch support for train on Mac and Linux. And in that, yes, and then in that I removed a lot of the duplicate flags that, you know, some of them are for Mac, some of them are for Linux. There's one thing that's outstanding in that I can't figure out how to use the callback properly with Click, because Click has a callback option for like flags and stuff. And what I tried to do was add a like, oh, this is a Mac OS only flag as the callback, and if they use that, it would exit. But for some reason, if you had that callback, the command would just always exit. So that might be a Click bug, or there might be another way to do it, because I know we can lock down entire commands for Mac OS or for Linux, but I couldn't figure out how to lock down flags. So these are kind of dupes of each other. I would say the one we were just looking at is almost like a subset of my PyTorch one. But I just wanted to point that out, that they might be overlapping there.
Okay, would you say this is a fair thing to do here? So I'm saying this one is duplicated by this issue, which you have this open PR for. So we could probably close this one. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it is, because this one was really just talking about itters and epochs, which I think I dealt with in PR.
This also hasn't been touched in 3 weeks, so I'm purposely fine to close this out. Does anyone object to doing that before we go ahead? All right. Cool. Look at that. And look at that, we're already making progress on the milestone. Wow. Look at that, 17%. Very cool. All right. So that'll be done here. Moving on through here, we have on the CPP Python doesn't pick up Metal on Mac. This one was opened by James. I see Martin and Jaydeep were sort of involved in this. Jaydeep, do you have any familiarity with this? You could comment on.
Oh, so that's 698.
Yes, I'll throw it in the chat here for you.
I mean, the comment that says longer term effort to move away from MLX is something that is more compatible with PyTorch.
It's
a good sign.
Yeah, so I think the history behind this is James was initially investigating what Charlie wound up raising a PR for, which is moving the Mac backend from MLX to PyTorch with MPS. Essentially, this is kind of related to what Charlie's PR is. I don't know the specific details. I think it may be. Charlie, did you hit this issue? I don't think you've hit this issue when serving with.
It's not an issue that's always hit. I think if you like compile properly, it just doesn't happen. But I think the point is we shouldn't have to compile specifically on Mac. I would keep having me assigned to this makes sense. Keeping it open also makes sense, because I can go like see if it doesn't happen anymore. This might be one of those things that's like, oh, if it doesn't happen anymore, the new code then close.
Okay. Is it fair to say this is a bug instead of a question, or would you say that's not really accurate representation?
I don't know. I would honestly leave it for now, because it's kind of an unknown. I'll have to talk with James about this one.
Okay, no worries.
I'll follow up.
Thank you. We'll just leave that then for now. This next one is exposing additional parameters for lab generate and lab train. Like JG, you open this and Mark is assigned to it.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, for this one, we had initially done this because there's a lot of stuff that's still like hard coded for with like training and stuff. There's like batch size, learning rate, things like that, which these are all knobs that should be exposed ideally for training and generation. And then I think we said that it's kind of tightly coupled in some sense with the cleanup that was being done to clean up what's the common overlapping code and the numerous flags between Mac and Linux. So I think once we have that clean up, in place. I think I can't lose track of how many different places it's happening in now. I think mostly in Charlie's redesign. I would say that we should revisit this once the redesign is in, so that it's more obvious where we can add new flags and how to do that.
Okay. Sounds good. Then we can just leave this one for now as well. I think as we get closer to the actual release, we'll know what we can have a good idea of what we can close out, what needs to be redone, etc. Go ahead, Charlie.
Not sure if this makes sense, but you want to add me as an assignee as well, just so I have this on my radar as things
Sure.
that I might go back and look at for train. Mark, I'm happy for Mark to take it as well if he has the cycles, but I might just like end up making a follow-up PR since I'm familiar with the code.
Yeah, I'll just add you on and I'll let you two think about that whenever you got time. But also,
yeah, but that being said, I think once the redesign is in, there should be a decoupled issue. Like there's no reason that it should be like bundled in with the redesign. I'm just saying that it should it'll be clear how to work on this once the redesign is in place. But essentially they should be separate issues. Just putting that out there.
Makes sense. Cool. All right. Reconcile differences for data generation between iLab and the backend pipeline. This is one from Russell. I think this sort of honestly has to do with a lot of what the discussions this week have been about. So I'm tempted to leave this in, but also to, this is like nested under. Oh, interesting. So this is nested under an epic here. Go ahead, Charlie.
I think the main thing here is we're looking to enhance the fidelity of the models using better techniques. But I don't know if I know this is something that we would really like to have by 5:30, but we might have to have a larger conversation as a team about what parts of this specifically we're actually going to do. Like this is a kind of I wouldn't say this is a vague issue at all, but we might have to even break it down into more chunks.
Yeah.
And see, like we have this, and this by May 30th. If that makes sense.
Yeah. OC, do you want to add to that?
And yeah, I think we will get +1 to what Charlie said, and I think we'll get a lot of clarity given some discussions that are going to be happening on the backend side and on the internal side. So, and also there are some equivalent issues which are like parallel to this, which are on the SDG backend. So I think that'll also inform this. And I think that some part of this is already done. Like now we have an ability to serve higher precision models with InstructLab and like use that for generation. So I'm going to say this is like partly 10%, 20% complete, but yeah, this is a more longer haul issue for sure.
Cool. Okay, so this one I'll also leave in the milestone for now. If we need to kick it down at a later point when we get closer, we could definitely do that. But great, thanks for the context on this one, guys. This next one is PyPy full release tracker. This is like an epic. I'm not sure. This seems like it should be, if not done, almost done. I don't think Christian's on the call, so I might just tag him and make sure that this is all set for 5:30. Unless anybody has any other context I'm unaware of, but
yeah, I created this as like a until we release an actual release on PyPy, this should be the tracker to like anything that needs to happen before we do that. So if what you said earlier is true with the whole 15.1, and that'll be the first thing that we actually push to PyPy, this might be able to be closed even before 5:30. So that's just some context.
okay, cool. I might call you out here if that's all right. Just say thinking that once we have our first PyPy release with 15.1, it could maybe closed out. Fair. Awesome. Yeah, that one I think should be done. A lot of work has gone with that, I know. ARM64 support to the container file example. This one's from Brent. It actually looks like this has 2 approvals.
Oh yeah, he tagged me in this. Can you scroll down? Actually, I think I might have been tagged in this morning. Does it have a hold on it for some reason?
It was, so it looks like we delayed merging and then it needed a rebase. It got rebase. Man disallowed.
What number is this?
Due to command restrictions. This is 987. But I think I might be. Oh, no,
it needs-
this is going to need to be rebased. So yeah, actually, Charlie, if you just want, I can throw this in the chat for you. But if you just want to comment on it and say like it's good to go, then once it's rebased, we should be able to get this in.
I'm doing that right now.
Awesome, yeah. And I think honestly, Brent, you could probably tag somewhere in upstream Slack. I tend to see him on there. Cool, awesome. So that should be it. Getting in soon. So other one is refactoring the CUDA container file. This one looks like it's been in it for a while. And it was rebased, it looks like. I'm not sure what the status on this is. Is anyone on the call aware? If not, I will tag.
I have a sneaking feeling this was to meet dev preview for Rel AI, and it never got merged because they found another way around it.
Okay.
I think it probably is still needed. I think it's kind of a total rework. I had some qualms with it because it changes the container file from being a, exec into the container and iLab is set up for you in the container, and instead changes it to be you run the container each time you want to run an iLab command. And each container run is an iLab command, which I personally don't like, but I understand the workflow because it's a common workflow. So I think that we should, I don't think we should merge this until he adds back the other method, at least as like an alternative. Like, I don't think we should remove one or the other. And we've had a conversation about this in other meetings, and I think I kind of got consensus on that from like Jason.
Okay.
So I can comment on that as well.
Okay, I'll drop the link for you there.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, just to make sure these things aren't languishing as we get closer to the milestone. Appreciate that. All right. And if anyone else has anything they want to add, feel free to move in. This is, we've already discussed this. Is Charlie's PR. Oops. Back here. We have in here initial tests. Cool. Lab test. This one is from Anik. Removing this from the MVP milestone. Ali, you added this 3 weeks ago. Do you know if this is something that should stay in the 530 milestone? Is there any progress on this you're aware of?
I think we need to make lab inference or test work on Linux first before we can even test it. So maybe I would tie this one into that previous one that we said Mark was going to do.
Yeah, this 659. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Solid, and then Charlie.
Yeah, so the issue with this one, sorry, not the lab
This
test
one.
one.
Yeah. Yep.
So I had initially written up like a bare bones unit test for it, but in order to actually run lab tests, you need like a model that you can test, and you can't really push onto GitHub. So I'd started without much results looking into like trying to, if we can get like a dummy or like a minimal model that we can push to GitHub. Long story short, there's still some research to do to figure this out. So I think this might be a longer term thing. Just like having a unit test for like lab tests or lab inference or whatever you want to call it.
I think maybe this is something we should remove from the milestone then. Charlie, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I've run into, I hate to be the guy that's like, merge things, don't test them. But I've run into a lot of problems with the existing testing suite in trying to like get things working for this milestone. So I think adding more tests to that is probably not the best approach until we go back and look at what is currently in both the functional and unit test suite, because they're both, which is good that they're blockers in a lot of scenarios, but in other scenarios they're hard coded to like specific paths that changing them is really difficult. So I think I'm kind of with Khaled that we should, consider this as next milestone probably, if that's what you're saying.
I'm going to remove this then from the milestone later. I've added to the list, and unless anyone feels strongly otherwise. But yeah, I think this definitely does take priority. then this one makes sense to keep in. I can't tell if Control is talking to someone else. I think so. All right. Support creating a workspace directly with Lab and Init. This one I know has had a bit of a road. I know there's an open PR for it. Although the open PR seems to be, oh, go ahead, Charlie.
Sorry. Yeah. So I
No,
was
please.
talking.
No, go ahead. Oh, you're on mute.
You're muted. You're muted.
Sorry.
You're all
This is
good.
interesting because it kind of plays into what I'm doing in my enhancement a little bit. So part of my enhancement is to move the config to like a centralized, like, home/.config directory and stuff like that. So it's not like in your working directory, because it's not very like long lasting, and it's kind of weird if you just happen to create it somewhere and then you get out of that directory, and then you can't use iLab and then you accidentally run iLab init again and stuff like that. So this is kind of a similar thing, except for you can like point it to an existing workspace, I think is what this PR does. So I don't know. We were debating like if this should be incorporated into my PR, or if it should if they play off each other a little bit. This one's kind of complicated. So we might want to have a larger conversation about combining this with the redesign, if that makes sense.
Okay. I'm just going to tag Raphael here because I think it's been a couple of weeks since he's been on this one to say it's something we could get done before then, or should we push it out today? Because if not, this might be something we want to remove, but I want to give him a chance to revisit it, especially if it's sort of complementing what you're already doing with the milestone, Charlie. Cool. So improve functional tests, stability and easy to debug. I have a sneaking Ali, you're assigned to it. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, we're not getting this done in 14 days.
All right. So I'll remove this from the mouse. That's very fair.
The context here is that like the functional tests are super, super hard to figure out where you actually failed, because there's a lot of errors that happen and you can't tell what the error is and what test actually, it's just complicated. The unit tests are fine and you can see what unit tests failed, but the functional tests are more of just like a script that you can't see where the error actually happened. It would be great to get this in, but I agree with Ali, it's not going to happen by May 30th.
Yeah, that's totally fair, and kind of what I thought you guys were going to say. All right, cool. We're actually almost through these, so let's see here. Users incorrectly specifying that model family flag is corrected. Martin actually opened this one. It looks like there's a PR open for it. That's actually fairly recent, so I don't know if anyone's had a chance to look at this. I may go ahead and just add the maintainers onto here, if that's all right with folks.
I don't know how I feel about removing model family. I know it's been something that's kicked around. We had to add model family quickly for some internal stuff that needed to happen. I am always the believer in extracting things from other things implicitly behind the user's eyes is a good thing to do, but you should also have the option to override that, I think, if that makes sense. Like, I don't think removing the flag and also implicitly deciding are things that need to happen separately. I think you can have the flag that can override the implicit stuff if it exists. I don't know. I unless the flag is like broken, which maybe we need to add some more validation, because I know currently the two model families are Mixtral or Merlinite, and then Merlinite also works for Granite. So maybe we just need to make it more clear like what the actual families are. But I don't know how I feel about this one. I don't know if anyone else has opinions.
JD had his hand up. JD, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, it would be nice if the relationship was one-to-one between, like, essentially the reason we added the model family thing was to decide which template to use, depending on what model is being used. It gets complicated because it's not exactly a one-to-one relationship, because the Merlinite and Granite models both use the same template versus Mixtral, which uses its own template. And I think I do kind of agree with Martin a little bit in the sense that since we have two different flags, there's the the possibility of error just like doubles because you can like mix and match with what you're providing, and that can unnecessarily cause confusion. Whereas I guess if we only have the model flag where we know that okay, this is the model we're working with, I guess we know that each model can only be associated with one chat template. So we can reasonably infer that okay, if this is the model specified, then we don't need the user to tell us which chat template to use. So maybe we can have an internal dictionary that just sees which model was specified and picks the appropriate chat template. I don't think that's completely unreasonable.
Yeah, let's throw the discussion in the pull request itself here, so that we can maybe get through the rest of the milestone of this meeting. But yeah, some good points from you both. I think there's definitely something to dig into here. But yeah, we can. I've added that to our notes here as well. So when folks have time, and I know that's like a comical phrase, but when folks have time, please take a look at it if you get a chance and add your comments and thoughts. Cool. So, sorry, it's my calendar going up. I think we just have a few others here. Initial tests for lab convert. I'm going to assume this is in the same boat, Ollie, as the other one. Is that fair to say?
Yep.
All right, so I will remove this one as well from the milestone. I may go ahead and create, well, this may be something we should actually discuss, but we may go ahead and create a milestone for 0.17 at some point, but we don't need to figure that out right now. Maybe that's something we'll talk about in our next meeting. Add more stop tokens to lab serve. This one has been open for quite a while. This one is assigned to James, who could not be with us here today. So I may just, unless anybody has anything specific on this, I may just tag James and see if it's something he thinks should stay in the milestone. Okay. iLab train fails if iLab serve is still running. This is like a bug. It is currently unassigned. Looks like it's been reproduced by both Mo and Christian. Let's see. So if you're running iLab serve from the iLab generate phase and they go to iLab train, it will fail unless the iLab serve is manually stopped. So I wouldn't say this is a major bug, but definitely does seem like something that could be addressed. Does anyone have any interest in picking this up? If not, we can socialize into the Slack channel. This might be a good first issue for a reviewer or for a member of the community to talk potentially. We still have that flag.
I feel like I don't know if this is 100% of the time. It might be a RAM issue because I feel like I would have run into this because I've been doing a lot of train stuff with the server running. I'll look if I can reproduce this. And
okay.
Yeah, and then
do you want me to assign it to you, Charlie? I mean, you already have a lot on your plate. Are you sure?
Yeah, maybe not actually. I mean, I'll don't assign it to me, but I'll look at the link and see if I can reproduce it.
All right, tell you what. Well, if you want, why not post it in the front end channel of the community Slack and see if anyone from the community is interested.
Yeah, sure.
You know, give people a chance to get their hands dirty. Do we have one of those? Throw a help wanted on there as well. Awesome. Well, we'll leave it in the milestone for now. We can always remove it. I think it's not something we necessarily need to have in the milestone, but it would be nice to have. Optimize CPU training on Linux. Russell added this to the milestone. It looks like there is an issue open for it that is currently being worked on. It is not going super well.
Yeah, it's gonna get clobbered by my train rework. I'm gonna comment that on this actually, just so they're aware. This is 1006.
Yes, sir, it is. And the PR is 1009. It might be easier to comment on the PR. Okay. This one we will leave in for now, but I think there is a not unlikely chance that this gets removed from the milestone later. iLab serve running Mixtral properly. This is Jaydeep and Charlie. You're both assigned to this one. Safe to say this is good for the milestone, or something we think maybe we should push out.
I think this is done. Literally the only thing, literally the only thing that we said maybe we want to do that's sort of not even 100% related to this is like the chart, like have like a fully fleshed out chart to make suggestions for hardware recommendation and things like that. But it's kind of like at this point tangentially related to this. We already have some hardware information in the community doc. So I don't think this should be blocked on that.
Okay. So I think we can probably close this out then. Charlie, you agree? Okay. He's hesitating there.
Sorry, I couldn't find the window. I was setting some.
No, you're fine. No, you're all good. Awesome. Great work, guys. Beautiful. All right. We are actually almost done. We are probably not going to get to other items on the agenda today, unfortunately, but I think this was definitely worth doing. This is the lab chat that Charlie actually has an open PR for. I assume we could probably get this in by 5:30.
Yeah, I just have to rebase it and address, I think rebase, or the linter is failing or something. It's pretty trivial. It's just like, if the server is running with a model in it, use a way to query like what models you served with, or model, I guess. And -m currently is like, you can say anything and put like foobar, but we shouldn't be able to do that. So this fixes that and checks what's actually being served. I think it's breaking tests because a lot of our tests serve garbage, I think, in some scenarios because they're unit not, or like the server tests don't actually serve anything. So I have to go through the tests and make sure that they all follow this new rule, which I don't think they do currently.
All right, no worries. I've done the rebase here, so see what merge applies as. But you can just pull that down. Hopefully that'll make your life a touch easier. Cool. All right, so I will leave this one in. This is a PR fix, update config file, and chat. Oh, this is closed, actually.
Yeah.
Oh.
I just closed it because I think we merged Sebastian's PR that did the same thing, but in a better way.
Cool. All right. So cool. We just have two more then. Lab train WeWork. We already talked about this one, I think, actually. Yep. So that's, we don't need to talk about that again. And then iLab should support multiple serving backends. And this looks like, I think this is something that we've talked about. Is it still something we think could be on track for 5:30?
Maybe not the entire epic, but probably the LLM. Consider it all depends on priorities that I think are going to be set today. It may be like a must, depending on the conversations, but we'll see.
We can always split up into subtasks if we need to. Cool. All right, so that is our entire milestone. We are now 25% complete. Great work, everybody. And yeah, we have 3 minutes left. So I guess, does anyone have anything urgent? We can't really guide into anything new, but does anyone think urgent or that they would like to discuss? And if not, we can, Kelly can end the recording and we can end the meeting.
There was one thing that I think Khaled wanted to bring up that I'll just throw out there and people can comment on it on Slack and stuff like that. We're considering adding something along the lines of like a remote server for iLab in some scenarios in which, like, if you have a machine with beefier GPUs or something that you want to shell out to that also run iLab on that may have different servers installed, especially once we add like VLLM support and stuff like that. We're kind of going through the motions of deciding what that should look like in terms of shelling out to a remote place. Would it be like iLab remote or iLab -- remote, or would it be seamless like iLab train with a -- endpoint flag? We're kicking around like what that would look like. So we can start a conversation in Slack about this, or I can write up like a templated enhancement that we can have conversations on, just to centralize conversation somewhere. But that's something that I want to put out into the community, just because I think it's something that's going to be coming down the pipe relatively soon.
I think if it's CLI specific, you don't need to do a DevDocs enhancement per se. But if you want to add a doc just about it into the docs repository, the docs directory in the InstructLab CLI repo, I think nothing wrong with that. But also, you know, if you want to start off as just a Slack conversation and only get to that if it gets to be a more serious thing, that's totally fine too.
Yeah, I think that would warrant some kind of proposal because it's a big suggestion.
Cool. All right, we're at the top of the hour. Kelly, if you don't mind stopping the recording.
Yep.
Thank you.